when I got here and posed some questions, I asked about the number of those buried here and where they were buried and that kind of thing. And it was really interesting because some folks, and to be quite honest, some white folks questioned the numbers that I mentioned, the 1,378 to 3,000. And those numbers were suspect when they came out of my mouth. When I mentioned I got those numbers from the white guy, yeah. All of a sudden those numbers have some credibility.
We were just having that discussion.
Of course, every single thing I have done no research on this. Terry Buckaloo came to a tax meeting about 4 months ago and preliminarily offered this information, and our response was, great info, but we know Reverend Tyler of Mother Bethel. Let's not step on his toes. Let's talk to him and see what's going on. That's what black people should do. Rather than immediately jump out against another black man or black woman, let's say, hold it, because he's a black man or black woman, he might be messing up, but because he's black, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And then when we find out that he screwed up, then we jump on him. So our approach was to lay back and give him a chance. And upon giving him a chance, we found out that much of what he's saying and what Terry Buckaloo was saying is pretty much similar. It's similar enough that attack can come in here. And by the way, one of the things that Dr. King used to be accused of, and none of us could even hold the jockstrap of Dr. King, but one of the things that he was criticized for is for being an outside agitator. What the hell is an outside agitator for a black man in America today? A black woman in America today, black children today. We built this country. In fact, I wish we really could have been outside agitators and remained in Africa, but we couldn't because they took us out. So to the extent that we're outside agitators, they forced us to become that. And I'll be damned if I now, who reap the benefits of my ancestors' struggle, is going to remain quiet. My parents had to be quiet, my grandparents had to be quiet, my great-grandparents had to be quiet. But those people fought to get me into Masterman, to get me into college, to get me into law school, not to become rich and famous, but to say what they couldn't say. So to the extent that there's questions about, well, are there really 1,378 that have been identified? Are there really 3,000 who've been identified? It seems to me that the question shouldn't be whether or not Michael's numbers are true or false, but the question should be, how do we commemorate those who are here? Whether it's 1 or 2 or 3. So the argument shouldn't be the information I'm giving. By the way, I'll say it again, my numbers come from the white guy. That's the first thing. It shouldn't be about where these numbers came from. It should be about what we can do to, quote unquote, avenge our ancestors. It's no way in the world that 3,000, 1,500, 1,378 people of any other ethnic group could be buried under a city playground and nobody said anything about it. 1,500 Irish people, 1,500 Italian people, 1,500 Jewish people under a city park and nobody said anything about it? Well, it's happening and has happened to black folks, and we don't have to be tired. And we're not outside agitators. We're saying what our ancestors demanded that we do. You can imagine that those enslaved black people who couldn't speak up, in fact, couldn't even gather. It was a crime for 2 or more black people to gather without the permission of white folks. We don't need any permission, and we're not going to ask for any permission. We're simply going to do what they sent us here to do. You can imagine in those shackles, in those chains, in those cabins, the dreams they have for their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. We're those people. And for us to remain silent in the face of all that, we become traitors. So you don't count unless people accuse you of being an agitator. If they're not accusing you of being an agitator, something's wrong with you. They should suspect you. They should wonder why you're speaking up. And if you don't speak up, then not only are you a coward, you're a traitor. So we're here to watch what's going on because it's our parents, it's our grandparents, it's our great-grandparents, and we're going to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. One of the questions I posed, and I'm going to wrap this up in 30 seconds, is has any entity, whether community groups or city, state, or federal agency, offered any opposition to this? And the answer so far seems to be no. Well, that's a good thing, but you got to be careful when people who have historically been on the other side say yes. What does yes mean? The red man and the red woman said, for some folks, saying yes is speaking with forked tongue. So we want to make sure that the tongue is not forked and that we watch this thing. And we make sure that just because everybody is saying yes, yes to what? A little blue and yellow marker on the corner saying some black people are buried here? Of course not. It has to be hallowed ground, sacred ground, prominent ground, conspicuous ground, and that's what we're here for. And the ancestors told me to say that and say no more, so I'm done. Thank you.
Right.